So let's go to page 39. Sorry, I guess it was stapled too close together. We have no choice. But if you open it a little bit, you'll see. Here it says that when Mashiach will come. Okay, we'll give everybody a chance to settle down. Let me do this attendance. Alia? Okay. Sarah, here. Bina. Deborah. Sirka. Malka. Ariel. Josephine. Anna.
She's around. She's there. Okay. Shoshana is sitting over there.
Yeah. Okay. Anna is not on. Sarah Abigail. Okay. Sarah Mora. Tova. What? Shayna is here. Leah. Okay. You're hiding. Sharonelle.
She's here. She just
Okay. Tehila. Okay. And Sofa Geula. Okay.
I was gonna say we kind of aired off pictures.
So page 39 is another source. Again, all these are things which we'll elaborate on later, but just to know the source, that when Mashiach comes, he will be teaching new insight in Torah that has not been known before. On top of the page, it says, Torah will come from me, and the Gemara, the Oral Torah, adds the words, new insight in Torah will come from me, which means, imagine when Mashiach comes, all the great sages that lived in the past, all the great sages that they knew the whole entire Torah, all its depth, and they're the ones who are the authors of the oral Torah. Nevertheless, they will all be learning with Mashiach. He will be teaching them. So obviously, what's going to come then is going to be something new, even compared to what these great sages knew. Page 40 is, it says when Mashiach comes and all those that are not well will be healed. One of the miracles will be that everybody will be healed. But it says that the first thing that will be healed will be the eyes.
Oh, that was beautiful. Let's go.
Maybe Malka put this in, I don't know.
I'm stoked. Let's go. Come on, Mashiach now. Come on.
Where is it based on? It's based on this pasuk on page 40. When the eyes of the blind will be open and the ears of the deaf will be unstopped. In other words, being that it says the eyes will be open is an indication that the first of all the illnesses that will be healed will be vision. Page 41. Page 41 is about the way the nations in the world then will relate to the Yidden, to the Jewish people. Kings will be your nurturers and their princes will be your nurses. It means that at that time will be the opposite of what we see today, that leaders and kings and rulers of other nations, they persecute us and they rule over us and they torture us. In that time, they will respect us and they will consider it an honor to help us and to do things for us. Yes. The last one? The last one means that it says that the leaders of other countries in the world, kings in other countries, they will be helping us and doing things for us, which means the exact opposite of what we have seen throughout the years of Golus. Throughout the years of Golus, we see leaders of other countries were the ones who tortured us and made us into slaves and did all the things that they did throughout history. And then they'll realize, again, every nation will still be who they are, but nevertheless they'll recognize the relationship that we have with Hashem, and they'll respect all the Jews, and they'll consider it an honor for them that they can do things for the Jewish people, rather than the opposite. Number 42 is that Mashiach will verify the lineage of all Jews. That's on page 42, where it says, He will purify the children of Levi and refine them like gold, like silver, which means that the Jewish people have 12 tribes, and some are Kohanim, some are Leviim, and a lot of people over the ages don't even know about their lineage, where they're coming from. Years ago, people were much more meticulous, much more on top of this, because in those days, the Kohanim would actually do the services in the Beis HaMikdash, and the Levites would do the services in the Beis HaMikdash. So everybody knew who they are, where they're coming from, and even then, there was a special committee of sages that would do the research to make sure that this is really their lineage. When Mashiach will come, he will verify that everybody will know clearly which tribe they're from, who is a Kohen, who is a Levi, and everything will be clear. That's 41. What do we have on page 42?
No, that's 42.
I know, but I see, I'm looking at it now. It looks like something got mixed up here, because we just did 41. 43. Oh, that was 42. So 43, this is based on the Gemara, but look what it says here in the Hebrew. It's underlined. In the English, it's a pasuk that describes how all the people will come together, and it says, "Behold," it's pasuk number 7 on the bottom of page 43. I will bring them from the land of the north and gather them from the ends of the earth. This is about the idea of the ingatherings of the exile. Among them will be the blind and the lame, the pregnant and the birthing together. So the Gemara, the Talmud says, these words, the pregnant and the birthing together, means that when Mashiach will come, a woman will conceive and give birth on the same day. Instead of 9 months, it'll be 9 hours. Is this literal? Is this a metaphor? We'll have to wait and see. We need some surprises. Yeah.
Is this the only place where it says that, or are there other commentaries that says it's literal that?
I have to look it up. This is the source of the written Torah. The commentary on this is in the oral Torah and the Talmud. And then we have to see commentaries on the commentaries, and they explain if this is literal or this is some sort of a metaphor, or it means, in a sense, in a literal sense. Okay, I want to move on to the next booklet. Basically, what you saw over here was just the purpose of this was just to have a view of where everything has its roots and source in the written Torah, and yet we have to still verify whether it's literal or metaphoric. But these are the things that have a source. Because Moshiach is something so phenomenal, so fascinating, people like to make up ideas. So you want to know if it's really true, not true. So everything you heard here, this is the source where it comes from. And the same should be with anything else that you hear. When you hear something, you should try to verify where is the source, or is there a source? Is it in the written Torah? Is it in the oral Torah? As long as it's a source in Torah, then you know that it's something which is authentic. So the first thing we're going to start from, we're going to do 3 things as far as other sources. One is Rambam, Maimonides, which is a book of halacha, and we're going to learn the part in the Rambam that talks about the laws pertaining to Mashiach. The other thing is we're going to be learning Gemara. We'll be learning the Gemara, the Talmud, which is, of course, even before the Rambam. The Talmud is the source of the whole oral Torah. There's a few pages in the Talmud that is dedicated to the subject of Mashiach. And the third thing we'll be doing is we'll be going through different sichos of the Rebbe about Mashiach in general, and specifically in what way it relates to the times that we're living in now, and how the Rebbe interprets events that are going on in the world, the changes that are taking place. I'm going to try to stick to Wednesday and Friday, which means on Wednesday we'll learn primarily Rambam, Maimonides, and on Fridays we'll learn different parts of the Rebbe's sichos regarding the subject of Mashiach and its relevance to current events. So let me give this out. We'll start with this. You can pass this down. Thank you. If you could pass this down. You don't fight over the colors, they're all blue.
Is this stuff online at all?
What?
Is this online at all, like Mario?
No,
Okay.
it's not online, but Mrs. Yafi emailed it to someone yesterday. She probably has it on, she has it on email.
Okay.
Ask her if she can email it to you. Okay, so let me just first give a little introduction about Rambam, about Maimonides. So Maimonides is actually the first one in the history of the Jewish people that wrote a book which is called a Code of Jewish Law. In other words, up until Rambam, up until Maimonides, we had the Chumash, the 5 books. We had all the books of the prophets. And then we had the Talmud, which explains everything. And if you're a little bit familiar with Gemara, in Gemara, it brings down different opinions, different interpretations, and there are disputes and arguments and debates amongst the sages. And when you study the Talmud, after learning it and even learning it in depth, not always it is easy to figure out, so what's the conclusion? Like, what's the halachic ruling at the end of the day? And under what circumstances? In this case, the ruling is one way. In that case, the ruling is a different way. How does it work? So when a person had a question, they would always turn to one of the sages, and they would answer the question based on what it says in the Talmud. You should be doing this, that, or the other thing, if there was a question. The first one to create a sefer, to create a Torah book that had no discussions, no dialogues, no debates, just bottom line halacha. It's like a handbook on practical observance. What are you supposed to do? So that was the Rambam. He went through the whole entire Torah, everything in the Torah, and he put it all together, and he wrote it down, the halacha, the practical part of the laws of Shabbos, of kosher, and every single detail in Judaism is found in his book on a practical level. What's the bottom line? What are you supposed to do? Not history. He doesn't bring any debates or different opinions, just what his halachic ruling is. So if you look at the pages, the first page, I'm not talking the first page in the booklet, but the first page in the Rambam, which is page number 5 here, it says chapter 11. So obviously there are a few chapters before this, and the Rambam, even though, how big is the Rambam? The Rambam has 14 volumes, and in the 14 volumes, he covers the whole Torah, but it's divided and broken up into 83 categories of halacha. In other words, there's 613 commandments, but there are 83 categories of Jewish law. In the last book, number 14, And the last laws of the last book is called the laws of kings, because that's also part of Jewish law. Appointing a king, who is qualified to be a king, what would disqualify someone from being a king, and what a king is allowed to do, what a king is not allowed to do. So there are many halachas. In fact, altogether, there are 12 chapters of halacha on that subject. Being that Moshiach is going to be a king, yes, we talk about the Moshiach as someone phenomenal, but in terms of halacha, he is a king. And he has all the laws of kings, and also all the laws that restrict a king, all the laws that give allowance to kings for do certain things, but he's one of the kings. Nevertheless, he's the sort of ultimate king. He's the king that'll come in a time where it'll be unprecedented times, but he'll have the position, which halachically is the position of a king. So there are 10 chapters about a king in general, and the last 2 chapters are about identifying and relating to this king, which is going to be Mashiach, and how we're supposed to relate to that time, and what are we supposed to be believing about Mashiach. So the first page here, it says Animamin. I believe that it's the 13 principles of faith. I just wanted to show you that belief in Mashiach is number 12. 13 items altogether. And if you're looking at that first page, I made a copy of a siddur. In Chabad custom, we don't do this, but there are many communities around the world. They have a custom that every single day they say all 13. It's almost like we do here in the United States. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America. We say that every day in school. So here, every day in davening, at the end of the davening, they would say these 13 principles, which means I accept upon myself with complete faith, A, B, C, D, F, G, 13 things. Of course, the first one is belief in God. Rabbi Duba, what he's going to be teaching, I think he already started, is to teach a little bit more in depth these 13 principles. It's philosophical, why we believe this, what it means to believe this. So number 12 of these 13 is the belief in Mashiach. Because you do sometimes find people that they are unfortunately confused, and they think of Mashiach as something which is not really part of Judaism, that's part of other religions. But not only is it part of Judaism, it's one of the pillars of Judaism. Another thing is, every day in davening, we say this prayer, which is Adon Olam. Again, in the Chabad Siddur, we don't have the second prayer, but over here I made a copy of other Siddur. It has another prayer. It starts with the word Yigdal. That's on page 3 in the booklet, Yigdal. It's also a song, a poem. But if you look closely, you see this song and this poem is actually all 13 principles of belief in a poem form. So the thing with the Rambam is, because it's halacha, remember we said in halacha there are no metaphors. Anything which is in a book of halacha, whether it's the laws of Shabbos, the laws of Kashrus, and in this case, laws of Mashiach, there's no questions whether it's a metaphor. It has to be and mean literally what it says. That's what halacha means, because halacha is about practically what am I supposed to do? Yeah.
Will we still follow halacha when Moshiach comes? Because will there be anyone with a desire to not follow halacha?
No.
So we won't really
Even if you have a desire to follow halacha, but you have to know what the halacha is.
Yeah.
You still need the books to teach you what the halacha is. But when Mashiach comes, I mean, it's a process, but there'll be a certain point where there no longer be Yetzer Hara. And that means everyone will want to do what they are meant to do, what Hashem meant for them to do. And that's why the nations of the world will want to observe their 7 mitzvahs, and the Yidden will want to do their mitzvahs. But we still have to know what the halachas are. So let's start with the first, on page 5, with chapter 11. You know, in America, chapter 11 means when you go bankrupt. So this is when Golas goes bankrupt. It's going to be chapter 11 for Golas. The first line is like this: Hamelech HaMashiach, the King Mashiach. So again, Mashiach is going to be a human being of flesh and blood, but he'll have the position of a king. And that's one of the mitzvahs in the Torah, that you should appoint a king to yourself. King David was a king, Shlomo Melech was a king, Moshe Rabbeinu in his time when he was the king. So in all generations there are, and there's supposed to be, when we are in the right situation, in Eretz Yisrael, and we have a Beis Hamikdash, we're supposed to appoint a king. So Mashiach is a king. Osid Lamed Ulahachzer Malchus David Liyoshna. In the future, when he comes, he will rise and he will renew the Davidic dynasty to its original sovereignty. What does that mean? So one of the major events that happened in Jewish history, and you learn about it when you read the books of Tanakh, the books of the prophets and the books of kings, is that King David was the king of all of Israel. He had a son, Shlomo Melech, he was the king of all of Israel. But when Shlomo died and his son took over, there was a split. There was another king. His name was Yerovam ben Nevat. And in fact, most of the Jews went to him. And he was not from the David HaMelech, not from King David's family. He wasn't from the tribe of Yehuda. He was from a different tribe. He was from the tribe of Joseph. And he had 10 tribes that followed him. And 2 tribes followed the king who was a son of Shlomo Melech, who was King David's grandson. And he only had 2 tribes. Which were the 2 tribes? Binyamin and Yehuda. All the other tribes went to the other king. However, there was one tribe that some were here and some were there. Which tribe was that? Levi, the Levites. So you heard the story about the 10 lost tribes. Those are the tribes we're talking about, which means that at a certain point in history, there was a king that first attacked the area where the 10 tribes lived. Those 10 tribes were taken away in exile and they never returned. So to this day, nobody knows where exactly they are. Did they assimilate? Did they get lost? Are they living somewhere together? So they called 10 lost tribes. And we'll learn later that when Mashiach will come, part of what's going to happen then is these 10 lost tribes will become aware that they're tribes of Israel and they belong in the land of Israel, and they will also come to join the rest of the Jewish nation. But since then, which is about 100 years before the temple was destroyed, the 10 lost tribes got lost. We don't know where they are. So who are we left with? 2 tribes, 2.5. Yehuda, Benjamin, and Levi. And these tribes were under the rule of which king? King David's dynasty. And which tribe does King David come from? Yehuda. So this is the reason why the Jews are called Yehudim. In the Megillah of Esther, in the story of Esther, when it talks about the Jews, it doesn't say Bnei Yisrael or the children of Israel, the children of Yaakov. It calls them Yehudim. And in fact, that's where the word Jew comes from. Why are we called Jews? Because we were called Jehudim, people from the tribe of Yehuda, people of the king of Yehuda. And that became Yehudi, and in English it's translated as Jews. So there was a time where there were those kings. There was another time in history where there were also kings, but also not from Yehuda, and that's Hanukkah. Those of you know the story of Hanukkah. The one who brought about the miracle of Hanukkah was Yehuda HaMaccabee. And after they had their victory, he became the king. And then his children became kings. So this was called the kingdom of Chashmonaim. It lasted for a certain period of time, and then it was discontinued. So once again, there were other kings, but not from the tribe of Yehuda. When Mashiach comes, there'll be only one king, and that one king will be from the tribe of Yehuda and from the family of King David. So that's what it means when he says that when Mashiach comes, what he will be doing is he'll rise and renew the Davidic dynasty. The dynasty of King David will initial sovereignty be the only king. So here he's sort of listing what are the things that he'll do. This is number one, kingdom. There'll be the kingdom of King David. Number two, Bayna HaMikdash, he will rebuild the temple. We read all the different sources that the temple will be rebuilt, but that's going to be through Mashiach. In other words, if people decide themselves, you know what, let's go build the temple. That's not that's not authentic. Authentic is there'll be someone who is going to be Mashiach, and he's going to tell us that Hashem says now is the time to build the third Beis HaMikdash. The third thing that he's going to do, there are altogether 5 things that he mentions here. The third thing is Mekabetz Nitche Yisrael. He's going to gather together the dispersed of Israel. Again, we saw this before in a number of places. The Moshiach comes, Hashem is going to blow the shofar, bring us all together. So right now, Jews live all over the world, in all different countries. When Mashiach comes, all the Jews will go back to live in the land of Israel. What's the fourth thing? In his days, all the observances of the mitzvahs will return to its previous state. We will offer sacrifices, observe the sabbatical year, the jubilee year, according to the particulars mentioned by the Torah. We all know there are 613 mitzvahs, but I'm not sure that people are even aware that almost the majority of them we can't even observe today, because a lot of the mitzvahs are commandments which were observed in the temple. There's no temple, we can't do those mitzvahs. So once Mashiach comes, we'll be able to do those mitzvahs, and we'll have the complete picture of all 613 commandments. Another thing, there are a lot of commandments that are related to the land of Israel. In other words, in other countries outside of Israel, there's no mitzvah to, let's say, to rest on the 7th year. I remember a rabbi, a shliach, was telling a story that got a phone call from someone who was not Jewish. This was in the Midwest. And he said, Rabbi, a lot of terrible things are happening to me. I just realized I read the Bible and it says that the land is supposed to rest on the 7th year. And I never did that. So maybe that's why all this is happening to me. So I explained to him, no, it's only in Eretz Yisrael. The laws that apply to the 7th year, the sabbatical year, which is this year, by the way, is only in Israel. And even in Israel, there are opinions in halacha. Some opinions say that it only applies as long as we have a Beit HaMikdash. If we don't have the Beit HaMikdash, it doesn't apply. We observe it now because the rabbis instituted that we should still continue observing it. But halachically, from the Torah, it's not an obligation today, according to some opinions. And there are more laws that have to do with fruits, vegetables that grow only in Israel, and all these laws don't apply outside of Israel. So there are a lot of mitzvahs that we don't observe today. Yeah.
If there's a non-Jewish farmer in Israel, are they supposed to leave?
No, they're allowed to work the field, right? In fact, that's what they do. They have a non-Jewish farmer take over the land and they work on it. So that's produces what's supposed to be produced. But all these laws, like I said, they're not fully observed today because the land of Israel itself doesn't have its full holiness because we don't have the Beis HaMikdash. So as a result of that, there are certain things in Torah which are not complete. So when Mashiach comes, everything will go back the way it was originally. The Karbanos, the sabbatical year, the Jubilee year that comes up once in 50 years, and everything will be like all the mitzvahs which are written in the Torah itself. So, in a sense, what the Rambam is saying here is something very basic, very fundamental, and that is most time when people hear the word Mashiach, the first thing you think of is miracles. The Rambam is saying that's not what defines Mashiach. What defines Mashiach is he's going to make the world perfect. He's going to make the world complete. Kingdom will be complete. Torah and mitzvahs will be complete. And the land of Israel will be complete. And as a result of that, everything else in the world will be in a complete way. So kingdom will be complete because we'll have King David, and he's the ultimate king. Again, the ultimate king is really Hashem. But Hashem told us to appoint a king, which means Hashem's kingdom manifests in this world through a king of flesh. Of course, many people, when they hear the word king, they tremble, because kings, that's trouble. We got to put away monarchy and all these things. We want to have a government that's a democracy, and people have an opinion. Not that one person rules us, but the truth is, to have a king is a mitzvah in the Torah. Because we're in Golus, and because there's a Yetzer Hara, people become corrupt, and that's when it leads to problems. But if there's no Yetzer Hara and there's no corruption, then a king will be someone like King David or someone like Moshe Rabbeinu, and these are kings that were tzaddikim, righteous people, and therefore they only were there as someone to fulfill Hashem's wishes in the world. There was nothing negative or corrupt about it. So we'll think of the idea of kingdom, that all the positive things of having a king will be there, and the negative things will not be there. For us, it's very hard to imagine that, but that's true kingdom. That's the way kingdom is meant to be from a Torah perspective. And when he says that all the Jews will come back, that means that the Jewish people are also incomplete now. If we're made up of 12 tribes and we don't have all our tribes, so even those that are here are incomplete. We don't have the rest of the Jewish nation. You know that one of the metaphors that are given is the Sefer Torah, that in a Torah scroll, every letter has to be written properly. And if there is ink missing, even in one of the letters, the whole entire scroll becomes disqualified. In other words, I have a word, there's one letter missing in the whole Torah. There are hundreds of thousands of letters, and there's one little yud that's missing. But if the yud is missing, the whole Torah scroll is now disqualified. So one of the things that this represents is that the Torah represents the Jewish nation. Each letter represents the different souls that exist in the Jewish nation. And if there's one that's missing, then everybody is incomplete. So therefore, as long as we don't have the entire Jewish nation united together, we're all lacking. So Mashiach comes again, the people will be complete because we're going to gather everybody together. The land will be complete because we'll have Mashiach on the land again. And we'll have a king again. And the mitzvahs will be complete because we're going to be observing all those mitzvahs that we haven't been observing for almost 2,000 years. So the definition of Mashiach, what defines Mashiach, and we'll soon see how this is relevant in practical halacha, is not, someone has to come and perform a miracle. No, someone has to come and accomplish all these things, bring all the Jews together, build the Beis Hamikdash, and show true kingdom, bring all the mitzvahs back, and that person is the messenger of Hashem to be Mashiach. In the list that I gave you, I didn't bring this, but there's actually a story in one of the prophets where Hashem told the Navi to take 2 sticks, and on one stick to write down the word Yehuda, on the other stick to write down the word Yisrael. So I didn't mention the other 10 tribes, they were called Yisrael. Why? Because most of the Jews were with the other 10 tribes. And then he said to the prophet, take these 2 sticks and bring them together as one. And this is an indication of a prophecy that right now the Jewish people are split. There are two teams, so to speak. But when Mashiach comes, they'll all be united. There'll be one king. And who will be that king? That'll be a descendant of King David. And that's why we'll see a little bit later that if someone comes along and he's a great Torah scholar and he does amazing things and he does even things that have to do with building the Beis Hamikdash, if he's not a descendant of King David, then he's not qualified to be Mashiach, no matter how great he is. Okay, we have a minute so we can turn the page, at least to start, and then the next class will continue. The next page, on top of the page, it says that we're commanded to believe in Mashiach. He said, anyone who does not believe in him or does not wait for his coming, denies not only the statement of the prophets, but also what's written in the Torah of Moshe, because the Torah testifies to his coming. We know that even though the written Torah is made up of two parts, the 5 books, which is called the 5 books of Moses, he wrote them, and then the other 24 books is all books of the prophets. So even though these were prophets, but in some way they seem to be inferior to the Torah itself. Where do you find at length and in detail prophecies about Mashiach? That's in the books of the prophets. And that's why we went through a few pages, but really there are pages upon pages upon pages in the books of prophets about those days, what's going to happen when Mashiach comes. So the Rambam says someone who denies it is denying what's written in Torah. But don't think you're just denying what's written in the prophets. You're actually denying even what is written in the Torah, which is the 5 books of Moses. Where does it say there anything about Mashiach coming? So the next part of this page is the Rambam showing us where in the Chumash it gives prophecies regarding Mashiach. That Moshe Rabbeinu, he is the one who spoke about Mashiach. He wrote it up in the Torah itself. And therefore, by denying that, you go against this principle. And then there's another thing which we'll elaborate on that later. Not only denying it, but if you don't wait for him, which means you don't anticipate his coming, that's also part of it. And why is that important? We'll have to look at this a little bit the next time we learn about it, why the waiting is important, why anticipating his coming is important. And what is so important about Mashiach's coming? Why is it like so urgent, so to speak? Yeah, okay, we'll leave it here, and next time we'll elaborate on it. Okay,
I had a question.
yes.
When you were saying about the Torah scroll, how like one letter is missing that is kind of disqualified, is that the same with like a Chumash?
I mean a printed Chumash? No.
Okay.
It only applies to a Torah scroll because a Torah scroll is different in the sense that when you read from it, you make a special bracha. Like when people get called up to the Torah, you're pronouncing Hashem's name. So for that, it must be qualified. And if it's missing a letter, you can't do that anymore. And you can't read in the shul and Shabbat from them. What?
No, I used, when I was in college, I did religious studies, and we're the only religion where like, even if you like find like a Torah scroll from like thousands of years ago, it looks the same.
Exactly,
Now, because,
identical.
like they're so,
Meticulous about each letter, right?
and
Right.
for every other religion, like, things just like change and like typos happen over time, it's just like become like inherent parts of the religion. And it's just
Yeah.
So
There it is.
so we cannot fix the letter.
No, you could fix.
You don't throw
No.
in the garbage.
No, then we'll bring it to a sofa,
Okay.
scribe.
The software can
He
fix
can fix the letter.
the tool, the scroll.
There's NIV, there's this, everyone's like.
Thank you, Rabbi.